Hello, hello, can everyone hear me okay? Hello, LTO, good to see you again. Hello, hello. Right, can everyone hear me okay? I'm actually cooking my dinner in the background and the fan's on, so if you if the noise of the fan is a bit too much and you can't really hear what I'm saying, then I can close the door. Yes. Mm-hmm. Come on. Goblin says hello, everyone. Can hear you and your dinner. Can you hear the cat as well? Ooh. Right, I'm just going to try and play about with the camera angle a little bit. There we go, that's looking a bit better, isn't it? So, first of all, I would like to apologise for... Oh, I know, Goblin, hey! Yeah, so I'd like to apologise a little bit for the state of my kind of background. Even though technically I am a professional miniatures artist, I still do paint just on my dining room table on newspaper, so if it's a little bit too... Goblin, stop chomping. The cat is actually just rubbing herself on the camera. Stop it. Goblin. Hi Pablo. Can we have an only miniatures pledge? Yes, there is. There is already a miniatures pledge. If you want that, it is the number one, the £1 pledge. So you can just add that to. If there's particular miniatures that you want, you can just select the pound that kind of gets you on, and then you can select the ones that you want. Ooh. Jacko, good to see you, buddy. Now, I haven't put any music on because I always seem to get complaints about the music, but if you guys think that it is actually, if it's something that you'd like to add, or I guess if we have no music on, you can put your own music in the background as well as the chat, so you can just choose what you want to listen to. I think the sound must come through differently on other different people's devices, because no matter how low I put it, there are always some people who are saying like, "Oh, it's too loud, it's too loud." So tonight is a play your own music night. So what will you be listening to whilst we hang out? You can sing for us, Alex, says Jack. Well, if you're lucky, and I think you might be, Goblin might be doing some singing for you tonight as well, because you're on heat again, aren't you, baby? Yes, she has been very distracting today whilst I've been painting. Goblin, you're moving the camera about, honey. Come on. So, what is everyone working on tonight? As you can see, and as I said in the description, I'm going to be working on the Tarrasque model. Now, he looks slightly different to how you've seen him in the pictures, and that's because with traditional sculpts, there does become a point where you have to get the old jewellery saw out and start to cut the pieces off. So here's where the head will go, here. And as you can see here, my dad, Rob, actually, who is our resin caster, has kind of gone through the whole model and put lines where the legs need to be cut off, where I think these are more for where his... Oh no, I guess it's an X. Goblin! Shush! And then we've got the tail, which is kind of split into two halves here as well. Excuse me, folks. Giving my tea a quick stir as well whilst that was up. Hi Jonas, good to see you, buddy. Oaken Bronze, evening. I missed yesterday's stream. How did the game go? Who emerged victorious? So I think the game went very, very well. I was joined by Jacko and James, who played... James was the Wizards and Jacko was the Dark Lords. And I think because we basically went in without using any items or equipment or anything like that, the Dark Lord very much just dominated the whole game. Like, I think in one round, Ram just swept him through like two sprites, the wizard and an apprentice. So I think a bit more tactical preparation perhaps will be needed to prepare for him, because he is an absolute beast. So what is everybody doing tonight? Are you just kind of sitting and having a chat? Are you going to be working on your own projects? Or are you going to be doing something else completely non-miniatures related? Turn the fan off now, so it'll be a little bit easier to hear me, I think. Right. Rafe is going to paint up some minis and work on some basing. Very cool. What are you painting up tonight? Oak and Bronze have some torpedo boats to paint. Now, are those full-sized torpedo boats, or are they for another game system? Also, you can tell I've been doing some painting today, so I'm one of those people that absolutely uses their thumbnail to kind of wipe off excess paint, or this is the remnants of some very kind of rough highlighting on some metal. Cool. Jacko says once he's done the washing up, he thinks he will give a go at putting a crew together for Stargrave. Now, I haven't heard much about Stargrave, actually, because obviously it's made by the folks who made Frostgrave, which at least once upon a time was a super popular game. And how does the sci-fi version compare? Jonas, I'm hanging out with my brother and the dog. Haven't really been too much into hobby mood with the nice weather and all. Oh, absolutely. In the UK, the weather has been absolutely gorgeous today. So, in between, because I've been painting up this month's Patreon miniatures for Digital Workshop, which is my 3D printable range. It's a different range to ArcWorlde. But I've been kind of in between coats. I've been sitting outside. I did try and paint outside, but it was just way too hot, and the paint just dried almost immediately. Now I know that the folks from much hotter countries than England are probably absolutely laughing themselves silly now, saying that, oh, you think that's hot? Try, our ridiculous temperatures. But, it's been up to 27 degrees today in the UK, which is pretty hot. Rafe is painting some battle line units for Age of Sigmar. Oh, very cool. What in particular are you working on? And also, just so I don't have to feel too awkward about sitting here in silence, what music is everyone listening to, as well as my rambling voice? Jacko, lots of similarities in game mechanics to Frostgrave, but is a lot more pew-pew than zap-zap. I definitely assumed it would be something along those lines, yeah, and that's good. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I guess people just wanted, more Frostgrave, but a different setting. I would like to, for those of you who follow my work on Digital Workshop, I have experimented with doing some sci-fi models myself, just because, it would be an interesting creative challenge, and there are a few people in particular who are very, very much about me doing more of them. But in terms of from a creative point of view, I guess my kind of what I'm known for is fantasy stuff, and like, yeah, the sci-fi miniatures I did definitely got a good response, but not as good of a response that I was just like, oh wow, like I need to focus on this. And I think also because I'm, my own kind of personal tastes, I am very much a fantasy fan. I'm not super into sci-fi. Like, I don't really have that much interest in like machines or like robots and tech and things like that. And also, because I've been using ZBrush primarily to be sculpting, fantasy stuff, fantasy creatures and things, I'm not that good at kind of hard surface modeling. So I think a sci-fi range would be a challenge, absolutely, and I would love to give it a go, but I guess it's just kind of like whether it would be worth my time pursuing. Now, there have been I did talk with a few of my friends about maybe just doing one model a month for the Patreon, but I think especially at the moment, and now that I've got the Kickstarter, the ArcWorlde Kickstarter to sculpt and fulfill, that extra model a month of time could be spent sculpting an extra model for ArcWorlde or getting a commission done. So it's very hard to kind of justify it, So another question from Pablo. New question. So one starter only miniature is the same price of the starter set. I'm not too sure what you mean. Is in terms of like the starter warbands on the Kickstarter. Yes. So obviously by getting the starter set pledge, you do save money on, because you get the book, you get the cards, you also get the stretch goals as well. So it is the same price, but you get loads more just even with your base pledge than if you were to get it separately. Jack, speaking of Joe McCullough games, your Albionicans would fit really well in his Silver Bayonet game. It's another mini agnostic game. Cool. Is that a historical game, or is it like a kind of a historical fantasy type mashup? I'm not sure if you can hear it, but there's a very happy baby who moved in next door to me a few months ago, and it's just very, very, sounds like he has a very fun time with his mum and dad. It's really nice. Jacko, historical fantasy, Napoleonic with werewolves running around. Not played, but sounds pretty cool. Yeah, it does sound very cool. Very cool indeed. Pablo and the new Undead Raiders are perfect for Turnip 28. Yeah, I guess you could say that. I love Turnip 28, and Max, who's the gentleman who created it and writes the rules and stuff, is an absolute gentleman. I've actually done some commissions for him, so some of my sculpts are part of the official Turnip 28 line. Like, I'm not sure if he's released them yet or announced. I think he's announced some of them, but I'm not going to talk too much about it because I don't know how much he wants to reveal. Andy, I agree, Jack Bell, but for a bit of quirkiness, I think What Miniatures couple well with Wars of Oz by Sally Forth, but the minis are nowhere up to Warp Mini standard. It's a rank and file game. Huh, I've never heard of that before. What's it like? Is it Wizard of Oz themed? Turnip has taken off really well. Again, I like the quirky nature. Yeah, absolutely. I think the vibe of it is really, really good. And I think something that Turnip has done really well, and I think why it's really hit a chord with people, is the such a heavy emphasis on converting armies. You know, it's very much a hobbyist's game, and I think people are really vibing with that. You know, I've seen such a creative mix of so many different kind of styles. Like, people have been using a lot of historicals and converting them, and I think historicals generally a lot more kind of budget friendly as well. Like, because most of it's in plastic or metal, like there's lots of converting possibilities, and I think also because it's, you know, the aesthetic is very rough and organic, it's very kind on people who are into converting, who might not have the confidence to convert stuff that's super clean, or like super, you know, something that has a very distinct visual style. Whereas with Turnip, it's so kind of loose what constitutes the Turnip style, and I think it gives people so much scope to experiment and bring their own spin onto it. Like, I think if I had the time to game outside of ArcWorlde, and if I had time to hobby outside of Warp, Turnip would definitely be something that I'd love to do. Because that's the thing, you could very easily just make 2 armies. Jonas, Turnip super cool. Thanks for recommending me as their supporter and a test printer too. Absolutely. So Jonas, as well as being the official supporter and test printer for Digital Workshop and Warp in general, he's been working with Max over the past few weeks on scaling and supporting some of the official turnip models as well. It's by World of Oz. It's pretty good. Set in the world of Wizard of Oz. It's Flintlock and fantasy, I guess. The rulebook is expensive, like Turnip and ArcWorlde, different to standard Grimdark Future or Tolkien fantasy. I agree, the hobby nature side of Turnip is a great way to power imagination and creativity. Absolutely, and I've seen some wonderful conversions for Turnip on Instagram. I think Instagram seems to be like the home for Turnip. Like, it's where I generally see like the most stuff. And yeah, there's some cracking work. Sorry, typing I meant the Wars of Oz rulebook is expensive compared to Turnip and Warp. It's about £35 paperback, I believe. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people don't realise how much work goes into making a rulebook. Like, I'm sure that the company that, or the individual that makes that is probably having to work with super low print runs, and obviously for most books, because you're printing 10,000 of them, the cost of it comes down like ridiculous amounts. But if you're working in any volume less than 2,000 copies, you're going to be paying huge amounts for any book. How many pages is it? That's not true. It's not slim and a work of passion. Oh, just a second, folks. Apologies for that, folks. I'm going on A friend of mine's just dropped some stuff around that he wants me taking somewhere, so it's okay. I'm back in the room. It's 120 pages, so you're getting quite a bit. It's in full colour too, which is nice. I don't know why I'm grumbling over price. It's a well-thumbed copy now. Anyway, it's a grand game. I'm glad to see it, and I'm glad that you could change your mind a little bit about the price, because I do think that it is hard to make physical books, and I think I would love to do another physical book. Like, people have been asking for like an ArcWorlde lore book for literal years, but the amount of time and investment it would take for me to make it is insane. Like, I would, I'd just never be able to do it. And that makes me sad. It does make me sad. And by John Buck Surdu. Cool. Has he made any other games? Like, what's his background? Like, is he a game designer? Is he like a hobbyist who just decided to make a game because he loved it? Is the Tarrasque primarily part of the Wizards faction, or is it a more lonesome dragon? No, so it's, as with, quite a few of the monsters in ArcWorlde, it is very much its own master. But so if you can see here, the tower, this is the size of a 50mm base, so you can mount any kind of basic model that isn't like a monster or a mounted character on top. And I think I might do rules of that effect for the Tarrasque, kind of like a King of the Hill situation, where you can climb on top of the tower, and then you get certain buffs and bonuses for the character that's on top of the tower, but then they can also be like knocked off the tower. And I think that could be, I kind of see the Tarrasque, because he is so big, is not only a miniature, but also almost like a piece of themed terrain. If you've arrived in the chat since we've started, don't be shy, say hi. What are you listening to? What are you working on? Yeah, you are right, and I'd love to see a lore book, but yes, it is a big investment on your work time and home life. Yeah, because I have had some people say, oh, just do it as a hobby. Like, you can do your 9 to 5 work, but then you can just work on the book in your spare time. But I think because I already live in this kind of weird in-between world where my work and my spare time kind of blend together. And when I'm working on a model, it's like, am I doing this for like work, or am I doing this for hobby and saying that it's work? And I think when it comes to the book, like, it would just gobble up like months and months of work, because I couldn't just do it like bare bones. I would do the illustrations and the layout and things like that, and unless I paid somebody else to do it, which I have considered in the past, but I think as time goes on with ArcWorlde, I think I really I'm cherishing that kind of careful personal touch that I've always had. I think once upon a time I thought the only way that I could succeed with it is if I did farm out a lot of the work, and I've actually gained more satisfaction since kind of writing all the rules myself than I did before. So I think if I did do a book, I would do it myself. But yeah, it would be too much work. And I think if the community was bigger and I could like do a Kickstarter, for example, like, and say, this would pay for all the kind of the manufacturing of it, and the writing, that would pay for my time in writing and illustrating it, then that would definitely be something that I would consider. But I think if I were to do that, I would have to not sculpt any miniatures whilst I was doing it, because that essentially would be like my ArcWorlde time. So I guess it depends on, would you prefer to have the lore book, or would you prefer to have more models? Pablo, very turnip and the wheeled, that Tarrasque. Do you know Wheel 28? No, I don't. What is it? Andy, I think Wars of Oz started as a bit of a joke that became a passion project. I'm glad it's taken off. I'd love to see it. Oak and Bronze, the concept art you've done, the rules, stuff from the first edition book, the comic, new factions, you probably find you've got more stuff than you think. Maybe a deluxe rule book. I'd buy it. I think, well, that is the thing though. I think if I did do a lore book, I wouldn't have any rules in it, because the thing about rules is that they go out of date, they change. There is things that are broken and need to be fixed, and I don't want to be in that position where I spend all this time working on a rule book and then I'm releasing an errata every year. So I think from now on, obviously I think I'll have the core rules as a booklet, so people can at least have a copy of the rules in their hands. But when it comes to like the factions and things like that, I think I'm going to stick to a living rule book, just because for someone like myself, where I am learning, I'm not like, I don't have the resources to spend on like a game that, say, Games Workshop or some of the bigger ones have. I do like to have that kind of safety net of, I'll make something and then, if it's a little bit broken, then I can, just release a new version of the rules. And I think it's good for the community as well, because I think there's nothing more frustrating than buying a fancy rule book and then finding out that it's like 3 editions of errata out of date. But I do have a lot of content though. But I must admit, I am actually really enjoying writing. So the little something that I've tried to introduce since the kind of the most recent rules update, which I believe was in May 2022, is I want to add more lore to the rules themselves, little snippets of information and stuff like that. I mean, I was very much inspired by Dark Souls and that kind of sphere of games like Bloodborne and Elden Ring, where so much world building is done just by 2-sentence explanations on an item that you pick up, and I've been really enjoying that. And hopefully, over time, all the information on all the different kind of model stats and things like that, I will build up something quite substantial and kind of build it over time. Jacko, I love me some moving terrain that you can interact with. Really brings out some awesome feat opportunities. Absolutely. Andy, don't be burning yourself out and you lose love for the world created. Where could we get our trolls from? Can't be having that. Does the link work? The wheeled rulebook? No, unfortunately, I don't think you can post links in the chat. I think it's a safety feature that YouTube has introduced, because you can just imagine the kind of stuff that random bots and things would post. But could you tell me a little bit what it is? And a living rulebook is great for the community. Maybe a book of the art of ArcWorlde. I would just, if I were to do one, I would very much like to do like an art and lore book that kind of works in conjunction with the living rules. Oak and Bronze, very true, yes, about the rules and errata. Granted, I'd pretty much buy anything for ArcWorlde anyway. I just love a good Wargames book. Yeah, I think if I were to do it, I would probably go for like a low print run, very high quality tome, kind of like the special edition rule books and lore books and things that Games Workshop have made over the years, and maybe have it set as a set limit, say, there are only 500 of these. But I don't know. That's the thing, when you just kind of, like, I have an expression that I use all the time, and it's like brain bubble gum, and it's when you just sit with an idea and you just mull it over and chew it over, and it gives you something to think about and just ponder upon. And one of the topics I always come back to when I'm just sitting and having a think is definitely, how would I go about making like an ArcWorlde lore book? Because I've even considered doing like a novel, like an illustrated novel of some kind. Like there was a series of books that I really enjoyed when I was growing up called The Edge Chronicles, and they were illustrated by one of my favourite illustrators. I say that, I've forgotten his name. Chris something. I follow him on Facebook and everything. But so that was, young adult fiction, and they were very much, paperback and hardback books, but all in black and white. And there would be like little drawings on the side, and I think particularly now that I'm moving over to more of a black and white and ink style for the printed, for the online rules. I mean, it started out mainly as a way so it's cheaper for you guys to print off the rules, but actually I'm finding it quite creatively interesting just working with pen and ink when coming up with my artwork and things like that. So I guess that could be a way to do it. But then, as you folks have all also said, there is something nice about having a big full colour illustrated rule book. Chris Riddell, that's him. And if you ever do the art book, I'd make it partially a pop-up book. I think it would reflect the unique nature of ArcWorlde. I'm sure, mind, you would have your hands full with the vampire faction. That's a really cool idea. I do love pop-up books. I wonder, I mean, I'm sure there are extra costs and things involved, but I think if I did go down that route, I'd just have to have a bit of a shop about and see what I could find. Oh, hi Kaplow, good to see you. Hey, been a big fan of ArcWorlde for a while now, but I've been out of the hobby for a few years. I'm browsing your site and can see the ArcWorlde Classics section. Is that one of those when they're gone kind of things? Pretty much. So that is my old range, so that's the first edition range. Like, we only have a few molds left of those, and once they're gone, I won't be remaking them because they don't really sell anymore. And I do like, I mean, anyone who's followed my ramblings online for a while now has known that I'm very, very critical about my old work. So I think, there is a very hard kind of border between first edition and second edition in terms of like the range. But yeah, once the range has gone, it is gone. What did you have your eye on? And thank you very much for joining us tonight. So, no chance for more undead pirates other than undead raiders. Well, never say never. Well, one of the reasons why I kind of changed the name of the faction from undead pirates to undead raiders is that, number one, they were never really that popular, and I think a lot of the comments I got from first edition was like, why are there pirates in a land-based game? But I think definitely since the rise of Warhammer Total War, like, it's kind of brought the idea of zombie pirates back into kind of tabletop gaming again. But I use the term undead raiders just because it gives me a lot more
scope to create stuff for the faction. So the undead pirates, the old models still work pretty much with the undead raiders rules. I've tried to keep everything that I make kind of a one-to-one substitution, but with more of a kind of a forest bandit highwayman aesthetic. But because I've kind of used a bit more of a vague name, it does mean that if I do decide to kind of create pirate characters in the future, I can absolutely do so. And I think with, you know, a clever paint scheme or basing scheme, like I think the undead raiders would make pretty good pirates as well. I've tried to keep that kind of 18th century aesthetic to them. Jacko, undead pirates were my first ArcWorlde love. I really liked them as well. I just never understood why they never really big fans. I mean, to be fair, like the undead raiders, I think, are the least popular faction, but I think, you know, it used to kind of worry me because I was like, oh god, like what's wrong with them? What am I doing wrong? But I think now I'm kind of seeing it as an opportunity to really like just make what I want with it, because then once again the name is so vague, I can pretty much just make anything, and as long as it's undead it'll fit. So particularly with like the undead raiders for this Kickstarter, I have kind of done stuff that's a little bit more weird and wacky, and I think it's got a really good response. So I think I shall continue doing so. Looks like I will have to go on a bit of a shopping spree then. I backed the original Battle for Troll Bridge back in the day. Oh, amazing. Do you still have those models, or did you sell them off when you had your break from the hobby? I appreciate you may be critical of your own work, but I obviously love that first run of ArcWorlde miniatures. Just have so much character. Thank you. Like, yeah, I think they definitely do have a special place in people's hearts. Like, I refer to it as my bubblegum period because because the style is so kind of chunky and rough. But I know a lot of people are very attached to those old models. I mean, they're coming up to 10 years old now, which I know in the grand scheme of the hobby isn't that long, but in terms of my career, it's definitely, you know, I mean, it's ArcWorlde's 10-year anniversary next year. Just can't believe that. It's absolutely insane. I think Undead Raiders might be my favourite faction. Ah, well, thank you. I'll let them know that you think so. Andy, agree. I love the classic range in my Battle for my Troll Bridge box set. Are you still planning a Goblin the Cat faction or special character, Ninja Goblin or Bard Goblin? So I'm not sure if you were about for this, but in one of the other streams I said that I had an idea for doing like an Egyptian cat people style faction down the line. I think I'd go with like probably lots of different styles of cats, but I will definitely be making a goblin homage. I think the community definitely expects it at this point. Kaplow, thankfully I still have all of the original models. I got a bunch of extras in the Kickstarter too. I was looking to top up the collection with the rest if I'm honest. So if you don't mind me asking, Kaplow, what was the catalyst for you returning back to the hobby? Obviously everyone's got their own reasons, so if it is a personal one, please don't feel pressured into kind of talking about it. But if it is a story that you can share, I'd be more than happy to hear it. Andy, oh yeah, you did say I can see an Egyptian goblin army in my collection and it expands the world setting. Cool. Yeah, definitely. Like, because obviously, like, I think at least definitely in the works are 12 factions for ArcWorlde. But once those are all sculpted and released for second edition, I think it's always that kind of difficult question for a creator is, do you expand the world into new settings or new themes, or do you just go deeper into the ones that already exist? So would I, once the kind of the initial 12 factions are done, would I start looking into new factions, or do I just make more and more models for those and let people kind of build up their collections that way? It's a very hard choice. Goblin the Cat mini, please. Wing, like, how are you getting signal on the train? Rafe, adding more factions would really complicate balancing the rules, absolutely. But I think something that I have explored with second edition, and something which has really worked well, is that even though there's lots and lots of factions, they kind of follow 4 different play styles, and each of the factions are grouped into one of those play styles, and in the rules you can kind of interchange the factions between, so there's the kind of the civilization factions, which are, you know, your kind of rank and file. You've got your commander who like issues orders to the troops and all that, and that's the Imperials, which are my like kind of Napoleonic style inspired guys. Halflings, who are, you know, my halflings, and the Norsvald, who are my kind of North European themed ones. So they all play pretty much the same. They have very similar rules, just with a few kind of unique bits and bobs on either side, and you can actually make your warband using models and characters from all three of those, and that's completely rules legal. You can do that absolutely entirely. Then there's the Nomad. The Nomads, they are your more kind of like bestial, big brutish creatures with lots of kind of like diminutive kind of sidekick / underling types. And with that you've got the Orcs, you've got the Beast Folk, and the Gremlins. There's the Fae factions, and they are very much focused on casting magic and kind of summoning creatures to use in battle that can kind of be infinitely resummoned. And the Dark Elves, no, not the Dark Elves, the Dark Lords, the Wizards, and the Wild Elves. And then the Undead factions, which are pretty much, you know, do what they say on the tin. You can, you know, resurrect characters, and they are the Undead Raiders, the Ancient Dead, who are the kind of your typical kind of Draugr style bony boys, and the Vampires, which are a new faction for 2nd edition, which I will be releasing at some point. But I'm very looking forward to doing those guys too. So if I were to do new factions for ArcWorlde, as long as I kind of kept them to that 4 play style system, it wouldn't be too hard to balance them, I don't think. Oh, there's been some chat. Let me just scroll up. I've been lurking on Twitch a lot, and the community is just wonderful. I've been super busy with work. Believe it or not, it was your Swamp Critter brew carrier that is motivating me again. Wow, that's wonderful news. Thank you so much. That really does mean a lot to me that it was one of my models that's kind of inspired you to get back into the hobby, or helped to inspire you. Have you seen that there's lots more Swamp Critters coming as part of this Kickstarter? I saw this new Kickstarter announced and had a browse your web store, and the Swamp Critter brew carrier just hit me immediately. I love it so much. Farley, I'm not up to speed with ArcWorlde, but 12 factions total would be double the current factions, right? Well, yes. So we've got 6 factions that are on the web store at the moment. The Imperials, Halflings, Wild Elves, Orcs, Beast Folk, and Undead Raiders. Then we've got the Wizards and Dark Lords, that's another 2. Then we've got the other 2 Undead factions, which are the Ancient Dead and the Vampires, and then 1 more Civilization faction, which is the Norsvald. Anyone coming in right now would wonder what you're doing to a tortoise. Oak and Bronze, as a business decision, interesting. More new factions may attract new players, so expand customer base, but do you lose the interest of players if you don't maintain releases for existing factions? This is something that I have really wrangled with over the years, because I do find that there are certain factions in particular, not naming names, but it does rhyme with Arfling, where people just love them and will buy them no matter what. So it seems like it would be a daft decision for me to stop supporting older factions because people are already invested. But as the factions increase in number, it is going to become the point where I would have to sculpt like 12 different releases per release, and I think there may have to come a point where I'm just like, I need to focus on the other factions now. Wing is on her way back home to me. That's good news. So Wingshine in the comments is my girlfriend. She's been in Germany with work for the past few days, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing her when she comes home. Oak and Bronze, hopefully not, of course. Wingshine, what are the arrows markings on the bottom of the sculpt for? They had by my dad. So when Dad cut the model up at the ArcWorlde weekend, I think he was telling me to cut here, here, and here, and I think the X means cut. I mean, if he's in the comments, he might be able to remind me what they mean, but I think that's what it is. Vampires, sign me up. Oak and Bronze. So on the map you have lands like Galano and Santa Luca. Are there factions, foes and minds? There are. So the Galano are kind of chivalric knight types. Actually, the halfling sword for hire that's one of the stretch goals for the Kickstarter, Jean Le Porc, is a halfling from Galano. So he's kind of like a sneak peek into those guys. And Santa Luca, I'm good. The kind of the inspiration for them is your kind of Renaissance, Latin, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese faction. I think I'll probably go down a more kind of faith-based magic system with them. So I could the Galano would obviously be part of the Civilization faction because they would be very much, about the knight and his retinue. The Santa Luca faction could either be part of the Fae factions, because you could have like some kind of faith caster like a paladin or a cleric type who is essentially casting spells and his kind of retinue, or another Civilization faction where it is very kind of hierarchical, almost like an inquisitorial style warband. Andy, I'm looking forward to them. I was wondering if Pork was Galano. I was hoping we can unlock him. I hope so too. Like, I've had the model for the idea for a while, and he's actually very similar to my my D&D character who I play. He's not halfling, I must admit. He is a human, but I love a good knight, I must admit. And I think I would really, really enjoy doing a Galano faction. I think I'd go lean very heavily into the Monty Python style kind of knight with their retinue of peasants and followers and stuff like that. And that's the thing, like even up at ArcWorlde, which is the kind of the area where I've been mainly exploring over the past few, since ArcWorldes began, there's still quite a lot of gaps there for me to explore factions and things. But obviously ArcWorlde is a whole world, so there's potentially, infinite numbers of of factions to release in the future. But once again, it's whether or not I would be better off kind of really focusing in deep on the existing ones that people have. It's a hard one, and I don't have the answer. Kaplal, fine. I am convinced. I'm going to up my pledge. Thank you very much. Ooh, how are we doing? Wow, 15. I think 15's the most viewers we've had on a stream so far. So thank you all for joining me tonight. Where have you all come from? Drop a hello in the chat. Don't be shy now. As a minimum, I really want that Hobgoblin Apprentice stretch goal. Absolutely. Fingers crossed we break it before tomorrow night. So for those of you in the chat who are kind of long-time ArcWorlde fans, who have been along for the ride with me on numerous Kickstarters, how have you found this more kind of shorter, intense project? Because I wanted to try something a little bit different this time around, rather than, you know, one that just dragged on for 2 weeks or something like that. I thought it would be really interesting just to kind of like, right, 5 days, boom, let's go. And I think it's gone really well. Like, it's been quite fun for me to just absolutely just immerse myself in it. Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you, Dagfin. Sorry I'm late. More daddy duties tonight. Yeah, so it was very poorly timed that the Kickstarter just so happened to coincide with the last week of term in Norway. So Dagfin has not been able to hang out with us as often as he normally would, but I'm really happy that you could join us. Jake F, California here. Love all of your creative sculpts. Looking forward to Jungle Gremlin rules. Thank you very much for joining us, buddy. And I am very much looking forward to doing those as well. Like, the Gremlins have always had a very, very soft place in my heart, and I can't wait to get cracking with those. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of tunneling mechanics, I think, because in the lore they kind of live in tunnels under the ground, so there'll be lots of them of kind of popping up and really interesting like deployment methods. So I'm very, very much looking forward to doing those and testing them out. Dagfin, I think it's perfect. The market is very different from the legendary first Kickstarter. Absolutely. So for those of you old timers who were with me in the glory days of 2013 when the first ArcWorlde Kickstarter happened, that was it was absolutely incredible. Like, it just took off, and I think it was a perfect storm of Kickstarter being quite new and people were kind of on board with the hype. Like, I think I was very young when I started. I was only 20 when I launched the first ArcWorlde Kickstarter, and I think people were like, "Oh, he's young, we'll give him a chance. It's a bit rough around the edges, but we'll throw him a bone." But then also, I think people were quite disillusioned with the Games Workshop at the time, so there was a real hunger for third-party games and systems. So I think it was the stars kind of aligned, and I hit it just at the perfect time. Jake, fun. They have so much character in the sculpts. Thank you very much. Have you seen the most recent Gremlin sculpts that I did for the comic Kickstarter? Now they're kind of previews of what the second edition Gremlins will be. Kaplow, just to clarify, there are already 2 apprentices with the wizard set. If I pledge for the apprentice add-on and we unlock the apprentice stretch goal, would that make 6 unique sculpts? That is absolutely correct. Jake, I did see the new Gremlin sculpts. Fantastic new sculpts. Thank you very much, buddy. Sold. I will even pledge for the dice set for good measure. Thank you very much. One of my sons is really enjoying the Gremlins with the masks. Ah, which one? Doing this fun thing where I say I'm going to finish blocking in base colours for my army, do 1 colour on half the units, then do something else entirely. Oh man, like, I can definitely empathise with the trials and tribulations of batch painting. Oh, cool. Do you think he'd be interested in playing ArcWorlde if he had his own Gremlin faction to play with? Warband. Rafe, much prefer having a cast of unique characters, which makes ArcWorlde perfect. I think I do agree with you. I really do enjoy. I think when it comes to like doing lots of models for like the unit types in ArcWorlde, like it does give me a lot of opportunity to really kind of add a lot of character and things to, you know, what would be in other ranges just your basic grunts. And that's something that I've really enjoyed with, I mean, particularly with the wizards. I think because, you know, like in terms of the lore, the college is meant to be for people from all over the world. Like there's going to be lots of different kind of types of folk, lots of different like clothing styles and things, and that's something that I do really want to try and like emphasize with these apprentices, because they are essentially like the students of the wizard world. So there's going to be some weird and wacky combinations of clothing and hairstyles, I think. This monster is more like a tortoise than like a dragon, isn't it? So there's definitely a like when Kate was coming up with the design of it, there are definite tortoise inspirations. I mean, the Tarrasque is actually based off a French mythological creature that has the body of a tortoise, I believe, the head of a lion, and the tail of a snake. So it's kind of like a lion, tortoise, dragon. And I do love these kind of old style heraldic chimeras that are just a mashup of whatever kind of creatures that that those folks in that time could just come up with. Dagfin, is there no music in this stream? I missed the old faithful playlist. It might have been brought up already. Yes, so basically because I always seem to get somebody moaning and groaning at me saying that either the music's too loud or the music's too quiet, what I said at the start of the stream is I'm going to keep the music off, but you choose your own playlist and kind of have it playing in another tab, just kind of softly in the background. So then you can listen to the music that you want to listen to whilst you're sculpting or painting or just hanging out. Jacko, the Hell Beast is on a 60mm base, so he's a big boy. Farlian saying dragon depictions used to include a lot of animal bits mashed in as well. Absolutely. And I'm a big proponent of like the old school like definition of dragon as well. Like I remember a few years ago somebody commented on a picture of one of my dragon sculpts like, Actually, that isn't a dragon. You'll find that a dragon actually has 4 legs and 2 wings. What you've made there is a drake because it's got no wings and 4 legs. And I just had to be like, mate, it's... I mean, I don't think I think I just commented something like, oh, well, dragons look like this in my world. But I do like the, you know, of anything can be a dragon if it's kind of monstrous. So, Jake, how close to complete is that Tarrasque? 60%, 80%? Are there a lot more little bits you have in mind for it? I really couldn't tell you. If I were to guess, I would say maybe 70%. Like, a lot of the work is the kind of the final polishing and cutting up all the pieces, making sure all the pieces fit. I like to kind of carve some pieces just to kind of make the details a little bit deeper and stuff, add dings and scratches. Like, I think it's one of those difficult things where, like, the closer you get to finishing something, the more and more work you can kind of give yourself doing it, because like, oh, that's not perfect, oh no, that's not perfect. So it is always hard to kind of make that final, like, nope, that's it, the model's done, tools down, you don't need to do anything else to it at all. Someone argue what a made-up creature looked like. Classic. Oh, that's not the best one. So I think this was for the this was when I first did the Dark Lords in 2016 for first edition, and I released a photo of the faction, and someone in the comments was like, "That's not what a hobgoblin looks like. That's not what a hobgoblin looks like." And then a friend of mine who isn't into miniatures at all, but he follows my stuff, commented in the comments, just like, you know what, mate, you're absolutely right. I saw a hobgoblin walking down the street yesterday, and it looked nothing like that. Just like a 90s loading bar, absolutely. Okay, as a starter for 10, I've just added 100 to my pledge. 100% getting the use from Chris. Thank you so much. What have you added? What miniatures do you think you're going to go for? Yeah, if someone joins I can't remember who it was who said it, but if someone joins this stream now, they definitely are going to wonder what I'm doing to this poor turtle. Kaplar wants all of those apprentices and the sprites and the underlings. So I had to go for that double starter. I was originally only going to get the wizards. Cool. I need to go back over what ArcWorlde classic miniatures I have, because I have a feeling that the packed lunch halfling will fit right in. I think you will too. So the reason why I sculpted him, he actually was a suggestion from Dagfin, who is, I'd say, probably the ArcWorlde community's #1 halfling expert. In the halfling rules, they have an item called the packed lunch, which is essentially like a healing potion. And I thought, well, Dagfin thought it would be fun to kind of represent that in a model, and I agree with him. So. Peter Peegs, I've had to sell off some minis I was never going to paint to make some shelf space in preparation for this Kickstarter. Oh, rest in peace to all the fallen heroes who didn't make the cut. Richard Smith, super late to the stream but so hyped for getting into ArcWorlde. Bram has been tempting us for ages. I'm guessing you can play with the Dark Lords starter straight off the bat. Absolutely. So the starter sets are designed to be used kind of as a way just to get into the game, and then there's a lot more like customization that you can build with items and with additional models and things like that. But the starter is a great way to, well, get started. And welcome to the stream. Ray Fasheka asking my mother what her favourite animals are. Hopefully she names something that exists in the Clan Beast range. Well, do let me know and I'll see what we can do. Listening while working, greetings from Texas. Good to see you, Scott. Thanks for joining in and thanks for saying hi. Dagfin says, howdy, Scott. You told her it's for Christmas reasons, and now she's thinking very carefully. Jacko says, remember that there was a demo game at UK Games Expo, I believe, where one of the players opted to throw his halfling sandwich at a troll as a feat to distract him from attacking. You don't get those tactics in 40k. Oh, I'd forgotten about that one. So Donald's asking, how will you make your mould, masters, of this large lad? Will you have it break it down to 8 or 10 pieces first, or do you try to preserve the original as much as possible? So I can answer that to some extent. The real person to ask is my dad, who is our resin caster. Normally he's on the stream, but I don't think he's in tonight. So he's already kind of split up into a number of pieces. So there's the head, there's tail part number 1, and tail part number 2. So he's got a long kind of whip tail, but also all 6 of the legs will be cut off, and then the body and the kind of the central tower will be, well, my dad says he can make it in one piece, which I think is insane, but we'll have to see. Dagfin, having a Texas guy in the chat brings to mind to have a gunslinger model in the range. What about an undead raider or maybe an orc? Well, I don't know. We have the headless horseman. I'd say he's quite close to a gunslinger. Not a traditional gunslinger, but he's definitely got pistols. Richard Smith, just out of interest, what's the black marker in his underbelly? Sorry if you've asked the same question several times before. So when I last saw my dad, because this was before the model was cut up, we took a look at where the mould cuts for him would go. So those are just drawings on the model itself that will help him when he's making the moulds for casting. Oh, hi Dad. Dad's here, just signed in, very late due to late hospital appointment. Oh, that's a shame. Well, hope it went well. Just been explaining, I'm not sure if you caught that, Dad, but I've just been explaining kind of the process of us cutting the model up for casting. I'm afraid it's not too exciting at this point, folks. I am just kind of working on the underside of the sculpt. Not exactly the glamour shots. How many folks have we got on the stream now? 18, wow. 18 people watching. Hope everyone's doing well. Oops. So in terms of the stream, I try to stream for 2 hours. So we started at 7. So I'll be logging off at 9 o'clock. Because my tea is literally like waiting for me. I mean dinner. My dinner is waiting for me. But if there is anybody in the chat that has any questions about ArcWorlde or about any of the kind of production processes, then please feel free to drop a comment and I'll do the best I can to answer your questions. Dagfin says we had 21 not long ago. Ooh. Like, I think kind of going... Oh, Rafe is saying, okay, back to painting. Goal is to finish before the Kickstarter models arrive in the post. Ooh.
How many have you got to paint? So for everybody in the chat, how has these kind of stream times been working for you? Now I've been starting them at 7 and ending them at 9. I know that you folks in the US, like, it's not quite ideal for you because you'll be at work, obviously with the time difference and things, but for next time, how would you, does this setup work for you folks? Or would you prefer me to start later and finish later? So Dagfin, with everything going on with my dad, we've decided to give ourselves, a long lead time into getting everything ready. So we've said that we'll get everything done for December, so before Christmas you should have everything. Obviously if we do manage to get them done before, we'll send them out before, but December is a pretty safe estimate, I think, for everything to be shipped. Pablo is just making dinner now. Are you in Spain? So I think you are an hour behind. So it should be about quarter to 8, I think. So we have a question from Donald. When did you bring the whole family into working on Warp? My dad is recently retired. I'm trying to get him inspired to find a shared interest. Basically what happened is that when I first started ArcWorlde in 2013, I was at university, my first year of university, and it went absolutely bananas in terms of the success. It was way more successful than I ever expected it to be. So my mum and dad, being the wonderful people that they are, were like, oh, we'll give you a hand with this, because up until that point I'd kind of very much done it on separately to them. They were always incredibly supportive, but they weren't actively involved. So they were really, really helpful in packing all the orders and shipping them out and stuff. And it was the Salute. So Salute, for those of you folks not in the UK, Salute is a big wargaming convention in London every year. And my dad had come with me to help me with my stall, and we were driving up, and I just picked up a batch of models from the caster at the time, and he was like, that's how much did you pay for all that? So I told him. He was like, oh, that's too dear, I reckon I could give that a go, just completely out of the blue. And he made it his mission to learn to teach himself how to cast, and within 6 months he'd cracked it, and it was incredible. And he became the resin caster for Warp. And in terms of my mum, she is the kind of person who is incredibly she has very good attention to detail. She's very thorough. She just has a real knack for stock taking and packing and things like that. And so she started to
do that for the orders for me. I mean, particularly because, you know, whilst I was at university, I was moving from place to place all the time. It was very hard to, you know, keep a stock and ship from wherever I was staying. So my mum was very much, you know, my parents were like, well, why don't we just ship them from here? And that was all those years ago, and they're still doing it now, and they do a wonderful job. And I'm sure everybody who has bought a miniature from us before will be able to tell you that Dad is the best resin caster in the world, and my mum is the best packer. Jack, have you got a favourite sprite and underling? Ooh, I think my favourite sprite is the fish. I do like him. But I do like the handball as well. It's like, I mean, this is very hard, Jacko. Like, it's like asking a father which is his favourite child, you know. I can't choose sides. But my favourite sprite, I think, is the one pulling his head off. I do really like, I think he's really fun. But I am looking forward to sculpting the one running about with the Dark Lord's gauntlet on his helmet. No, Dark Lord's gauntlet, him kind of jammed inside it. Rafe, 50 models is doable until you get distracted by whittling or dioramas or cross-stitch. Those are 3 very cool hobbies. Andy, the teapot's great. Donald, that's wonderful. Thanks for sharing. Thank you. Dagfin, we, the Warp community, can second that statement about Rob and Dawn. I love how you are speaking on as a spokesperson for the Warp community. I think you actually would fit that role incredibly well. Speaking on behalf of the Warp community. So I really have just been spending this entire stream. I mean, no, that's a lie. I did sculpt the other side of the face, but most, at least the latter half of this stream, has just been spent sculpting folds. So what's everyone going to be up to once the stream ends? Are you going to be carrying on doing hobby, or are you going to be cracking on with something else? I know a few of you folks are in the US, so kind of listening in from work. Peter Peegs, yeah, I work from home, so just continuing that. Absolutely, working from home is amazing, isn't it? Have you always done that, or is it something that you've kind of moved towards since the pandemic? Dagfin's going to catch an episode of Stranger Things. Jacko, it would be funny to have an underling farting. We all... Oh, someone's come to say hello. Yeah, hi Goblin. See if I can turn the camera. Hi, Piggy. Yeah. Rob Huntley, our guy's not going to be able to get my head through the front door now. You say that. We always say wonderful things about you, Dad. And all true. Peter, I started a new job a year ago and they had us going in like once a week, but that fell apart. Yeah, like there's a few of my friends who've had that kind of situation. I mean, a lot of my friends are like public service workers, like doctors and policemen and civil servants and things, so they've just had to be coming in the whole time. But some of them have been working from home and they're like, I do not want to go back into the office because this is just way better. Once everyone got a taste of work from home, no one wanted to go back. Absolutely, like especially like I can imagine in the US where the travel time just takes so much further, like your commutes are ridiculous. Yes, Goblin, you having a nice sniff? Yeah. Ooh. Right, folks. Final chance for you all to get a question in before we say goodnight. So before Goblin and I say goodnight. Kaplow, I used to wake up at 6 to get into the office for 7:30. Now I work from home, I start at 8 and wake up at 8:30. Yeah, my commute wasn't terrible, but it was longer than it takes to walk downstairs. Absolutely. I mean, I've always worked from home because I've only ever done warp, literally from university. So I'm definitely like pleased for everybody who's been given the chance to live the work from home life. Ooh. Goblin, do you really need to sit right here? Okay, excuse me. Okay, everybody, it's time for me to log off. Hope you enjoyed yourselves, just having a chill old time, having a chat whilst I've been sculpting. One more question in. Just a quick note on buying models from the store. If I pledge X amount extra right now, then they'll be put to one side and delivered alongside the Kickstarter in December. Yes, so basically when the Pledge Manager goes live,
I will release a code that allows you to buy models from the web store, and then add them to the pledge. But also, the pledge manager will include all of the second edition models from the previous second edition Kickstarters anyway. So, and at Kickstarter prices. So I would say put the money for the swamp critter into your pledge, and then you can use it to buy it on like the kind of the storefront when the pledge manager comes in. Well, thank you so much everybody for joining me tonight. Hope you enjoyed yourself. So we have one more stream to go before the end of the campaign. We'll be doing like a kind of a closing party, and it'll be a lot more kind of chill and casual again, but then obviously counting down to the end. So if you've got a bit of spare time, we'd love to see you, give you all a last chance to kind of grill me on ArcWorlde and what I've got planned and everything like that. But until tomorrow night, I wish you all adieu. Good night, folks. Have a wonderful evening.